Greetings on behalf of Asociación de Mujeres de Guatemala, which stands as AMG. For several years now, the Spanish state has been progressively obstructing migrants and refugees from exercising their right to legal identity, to the point of making it impossible in practice. Due to this, more than 6,100 migrants and refugees have their right to work or health care mutilated. They cannot access social benefits. Neither they can homologate their qualifications or rent a house. Their children have obstacles to go to school. Even the simplest routines like opening a bank account and buying bus or train tickets are often impossible. In addition, they run the risk of being locked up in an immigration detention center and being expelled from the country. This reality disproportionately affects migrant and refugee women who, prior to these cuts in rights, already had a situation of greater vulnerability and precariousness due, among other reasons, to the jobs they are forced to take on: harvesting in crop areas, caring for the elderly, domestic service or cleaning, jobs they carry out without decent conditions and in which they also suffer constant harassment and violence from their employers. It is also important to stress that migrant and refugee women are the vast majority of victims of sexual and labor exploitation, or are at risk of being so. The violation of fundamental rights of migrants has worsened during the pandemic because the closing of the administration's doors intensified, so that many were unable to renew their residency or work permits, and neither they could have access to the legal residence. In addition, the government implemented a policy of massive denials of asylum applications at the same time that it approved emergency aid for the pandemic, from which it excluded anyone who was not regularized. In other words, the discriminatory policies of the state have created more people in an irregular administrative situation, and at the same time, the same state has denied all emergency protection to the vulnerable population that it created through these discriminatory policies. Through two fundamental pillars: generating a current of political opinion around the problem and promoting accountability. We will do this based on three central actions. 1. A diagnostic report to know in depth the dimension of the problem and to identify specific cases. 2. We will continue with the strategic litigation actions that we already have underway and will open new ones. 3. We will develop a complaint and awareness campaign through the media. At AMG, we are well aware that only strong campaigns are able to incline judicial decisions to more extensive legal practices, as happened with our Yo Te Creo, which stands as I Believe You in English, campaign, which denounces the negative impact of gender stereotypes and prejudice in the credibility of women and girls who were victims of sexual violence. It was so important in Spain that it even managed to get the high courts to modify their interpretation of sexual consent, and it was the beginning of a new law on this issue that is currently being debated in Congress. It is also a great movement throughout Latin America as well. The actions carried out by AMG have already had a very positive impact that has benefited thousands of people. Some examples. AMG managed to get the Ombudsman to recommend that the government abandon the restrictive practice of forcing refugees to renounce their asylum application to request residency through other means to which the law gives them the right. A high court in Madrid has agreed with AMG in our judicial complaint that non-access to the administration is discrimination. AMG is already generating an opinion on the Spanish mass media agenda. 1. It has great growth potential both in the number of cases that can be prosecuted and in the possibility of going to international courts. 2. This initiative can be replicated in other strategic cities. 3. We're going to strengthen our relationship and legal support to large platforms such as Regularización Ya, which brings together thousands of migrant organizations. 4, and very importantly, the fact that AMG is an organization founded and led by migrant and refugee women is an essential boost for the empowerment of the foreign community itself. Thanks a lot.